Anjos. I don't speak Portuguese, I'm sorry, you have to pronounce it later better than me. Who started up in Sao Paulo helping people getting started with cycling, and is now spreading throughout total Latin America with their mission. And finally, Marcio Deslandes also joined us, and he is the Global Policies Director with the European Cycling Foundation, and will link these all these grassroots initiatives that will be presented by Xenia and JP, also with what's happening on a global policy scale, and especially on the new urban agenda, which will hopefully be the outcome document of the Habitat 3 conference that will take place next year, and Marcio will elaborate on that in further detail.
I'm just trying to put my camera, Jakob, and it's not really working. Maybe,
okay.
I think you need to give me permission.
I need to give you permission. Yeah, we'll maybe try to work it out. Oh yeah. All right. Anyway, and in the end, obviously, there will be time for discussion. So we'll have 15 minutes or so, and you're welcome to use the little. Ah, there he is. Hi, Marcio. So yes, we'll have time for discussion later, 50 minutes, and you can use the chat window of the GoToMeeting software to ask questions, etc. All right. Here a little overview what you can do. So you can minimize that little window I just talked about, and you also have the chat function over under there. And please make sure to write your question to everyone, or so everyone can see your question. I would very much like to ask you to deactivate your microphone while the others speak, because otherwise it will be a whole mess with everyone having noises in their heads. All right, I think we're ready to get started with Xenia, and I will give the moderation to you if you like it. I'll just have to find you in this huge list. There you are. Okay, you're now moderator, Xenia, so
okay, thank you, Jakob. Yes, hold on. I will just turn on the presentation. Can you hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Xenia from Kiev Cyclists Association. I work for the NGO, but at the same time I'm also part of the Kiev City Council team, where as of 2 years I work as a mayor's advisor on cycling. And our NGO was the first one who basically introduced the topic to the political and city agenda. And I would like to share with you some of our experiences, how we started with the protest activities in the city, and smoothly developed our work, and now we cooperate with the city and also with the national authorities and the other NGOs and other cities. Jakob, please keep the timing. I hope I will be within the 15 minutes, but just in case you can let me know if I'm out of the schedule, right? Okay, then briefly, as I said, we are a non-profit organization, and we started in our work in 2005 from the very first protest in front of the city council. Nowadays we are a membership NGO, and we have over 250 members who pay membership fees. We are also an European Cyclist Federation member for the last 5 or 6 years, I think, already. And we all started as a volunteer organization.
Xenia?
And
if I may just interrupt, we don't see your presentation quite yet.
No?
I don't see it.
Let's try it once again. Can you see it now? Do you see it?
There, now here you go. That's good.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sorry for the technical
there we are.
problem. Okay. Yes, so as I said, we started as a volunteer organization, and today we have already 6 staff members and our very active board of the association. And the main goal, as most of the cycling NGOs, we want to better conditions for cycling in the city and bicycle being a part of the transport system in the city. And this logic goes together with a wider picture of civil society development and growth in Ukraine. And particularly on the local, like there were many NGOs who were dealing with the transparency and corruption and democracy development, but there were very few NGOs who were dealing with the urban space, with our streets and cities. And I think cycling NGOs are a great example how networks develop within the country and internationally, and how we cooperate together with other NGOs, but also how we build bridges with the city councils and local authorities. And that's one of our missions as well, not only develop cycling, but also build trust between people who work on the city level, and help communicating, let's say. And as I said, we are a local NGO, we are Kyiv Cyclists Association, but a few years ago we realized that we cannot work only on the local level, where we promote cycling as a transportation mode, but and advocate for cycling infrastructure. But we also need to work on the national level because of the legislation, and also understanding that if there are more organizations and more people talking about cycling in other cities and other city councils, then it will be easier for us as well to work on our local level. And that's why we brought a new branch of activities into our work, working on the making other cycling NGOs stronger in other cities, sharing our experiences, sharing our knowledge, and improving their capacity to work with their city councils to advocate changes and to advocate how our streets and roads are built. And in that sense, we are also working not only on cycling promotion, but we are bringing a wider discussion, like how our cities are used, like who is using our roads, how, like, are they safe and accessible for everyone? And that's the discussion that 5 years ago nobody was talking about. Like, these are the topics that didn't exist back then. And I think one of our main achievements is that finally our city authorities and slowly national government as well, they start talking about road safety and who and how uses our streets. So this is the overview of our main activities, and I will talk about these 2 national cases on the Information Hub and the elections campaign that I picked particularly for this presentation. And this is just to illustrate how we used to work 5 years ago. That was on the left side. You can see the protest that we organized on the April 1st, on the Fool's Day, and on the right side you can see the picture from the last year when we were working with our traffic engineer sitting in the city council and discussing the one of the huge intersections in Kyiv. So we gradually shifted from our protest activities to cooperation, and we tried we tried to cooperate 5-6 years ago, but with the city authorities, but there was simply no understanding why we're talking about cycling, what is so important. The community of cyclists was very marginalized and thought of something like for fun or for sports, and it's not part of a serious political debate even at the local level. So at that moment we decided to switch to build public support and media support to what we do, because this is the way to talk to the voters. And these are the people who then decide who will sit in our city council. And last 2 or 3 years we spent mostly working with the general population, explaining how cycling is beneficial for everyone, not only those who bike in the city. And at the same time we were working with those people in the city administration who did understand why we talk about cycling as part of the transport policy. And for us it was important to show that those people who work in the city administration and they cooperate with NGOs, they get results. It's not only slowing the process, but you can show better results by participation and involving stakeholders into the process. And the very important thing was to build this trust between the people who live in the city, NGOs who work in the field, and then the local authorities. And as a result of this kind of strategy, 2 years ago we finally got the position of official position of the advisor to the mayor on cycling, because we, as an NGO, we really wanted to delegate part of the activities that we do. We wanted to delegate it to the city council. But then unexpectedly we were offered the position, and we realized as an NGO that nobody knows better than us what to do on the local level, and we agreed that like one of our members will take the position, and I got this position 2 years ago. It's unpaid position, so it's more of a political advice to the mayor. And at the end of the same year, first ever budget allocations for cycling infrastructure were done in the city. And last year already the mayor, whom you can see at the picture here, he was presenting to the public our first good cycling route that linked one of the neighborhoods with the city center of Kiev. And I think that's a very simple, it might look as a very simple path, but building this link between the NGO, our expertise, and the city authority, it took us quite some time, and now we are seen already as somebody who can help the local administration to make good decisions, and they see us already as a partners and not as a opposition, let's say. And at the same time, as I said, on the national level, there is very little capacity among local authorities and among traffic engineers and among NGOs as well on how to promote cycling, how to develop cycling infrastructure. And 5 years ago, together with the support of GIZ, who were working at that moment on one of the urban mobility projects in Ukraine, we established a national platform where we gather all the information about progress of other cities, about best practices, failures as well, and all the lessons learned from those wrong decisions. And also one of the key goals is to show the scope of interest to the cycling. That it's not only one NGO in one of the towns, but there is a whole network of organizations, cities, who try and build cycling infrastructure and promote cycling in their cities. And I think this is a very good example of sharing knowledge, building bridges between cities, and and showing that there is an interest in not only in the capital city but also smaller cities and towns can benefit of our experience. And the last thing that I wanted to share you is an experience of working and cooperating with the local authorities was during the local elections last year. It was a national level local elections to the city councils all over Ukraine. And we already, at that time, we already had quite a good network of NGOs working in different cities in Ukraine. And we decided to create a national campaign that would raise issue of cycling during the elections as part of the elections campaign. That was the first case when we were trying to create a political agenda for candidates. We used all the same, we had a kind of cycling declaration that all the candidates for the mayors or the city councillors could sign, declaring that they support cycling, and they would, if they are elected, they will fulfill 5 promises that they signed on the declaration. And as you can see at the slide, the geography of participation was very wide. We had very clear instructions for the local advocacy groups, what to do, how to approach the candidates or political parties, and for small NGOs, it was also important being part of the wider network, getting clear methodology how to work with the candidates. For them, it was easy to establish the contact and get the signatures of the candidates. And I believe that that was one of the most successful campaigns just on the national level. It was a cooperation of all the NGOs on the national level, and B, bringing media attention to cycling as also as a political issue, that you can talk to your candidates or talk to your city councillors or your mayor and have a stand on the urban mobility issue. And I believe that cycling NGOs, they are the major driving force of many changes in Ukrainian cities right now, and also of cooperation that we established between the NGOs or non-profits, people who live in the cities, and the city administration, who finally starts talking to people, who starts with the participatory processes, who starts asking people what they want to do in the city and how they want to move around. And I think this is one of the critical changes that we see over the last few years, when people start talking, asking, and trying to cooperate and find a win-win solution for everyone here. I hope I can answer all the questions if you have later at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Ksenia. Yeah, thanks also for mentioning the questions again. Everyone, please feel welcome to write questions in the chat. I guess we'll proceed like this, that we collect the questions and then come back to them later after the presentations. And that means that we'll hand over and fly over the Atlantic, so to say, and to Brazil, and hear of JP, what he has been up to in Brazil. Okay, I'll make you moderator so we can switch the whole thing. Okay, we see your browser. JP, in case you're talking, we can't hear you. Still nothing, unfortunately. One minute, I guess. The finger means 1 minute.
Hi JP, here's Matthias. You could try in that kind of register audio. Probably you simply need to select the other microphone. Could be that still you have selected the microphone of your computer or so. So that's kind of the tab just directly below the microphone symbol, if that helps.
See, maybe like this?
Yes, that works.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I took my earphones off. I don't know if the noise it's going to be too noisy, but let me know, all right?
It sounds really good. I mean, it's crystal clear.
Okay, perfect then. Then let me share my screen. You're seeing my screen now, yeah?
We do.
And maybe now the presentation.
Oh, that's right. We do see that as well.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, I'll try to have also my time here for myself so I can try to be all on time. But first of all, thank you for Jacob for the first conversations we have and for having this great idea together. It's really a pleasure to be here. And well, I come from Brazil, and my first or main theme I wanted to talk about is the opening and the bike revolution that is happening in Brazil in regards to that. And just to present myself quickly, I'm co-founder of Bike Angel. That's the pronunciation, Jacob will practice, no worries. And also I am now in Germany, in Berlin, currently doing a fellowship program, the German Chancellor Fellowship from Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. Well, this is the city where I grew up in, a city that is, well, 11.8 million people in this big city. And the metropolitan region goes up to 20 million. And just to have an idea here, if you go from up north to south, you can actually go 90 kilometers long, yeah. And also the extraordinary number of 17,000 kilometers of streets. And the reason why I'm talking about this distance and all this city is because I started seeing in the city how hostile it is for cycling. So this would be the sign that most of the cyclists would see around 2007, 2008. This would be the only one, meaning forbidden, yeah? And you could see definitely in the whole city this inversion of priorities. Instead of giving priorities to walking and cycling and to active transportation, you would see the priority for cars and new bridges and new avenues and more cars. And of course, this made up, and me including in this, the car dependency. So lots of people depended on cars, and I was one of them, driving more than 40 kilometers a day. And of course, got crazy and definitely felt much better when I found my bike and decided, okay, I'm switching my car for a bike. And I started doing that. But as I said, the city was quite hostile, and I was wondering, why is that? Why is nobody talking about that? And actually I saw that other people were really talking about that. Other activists, other cyclists on the streets were actually also discussing this and wanting to make a change. And from this, of course, critical mass was one of the concentration of all this cyclists trying to make a change in the city. But rapidly, between 2009 2012, a bunch of organizations grew up and were founded. So groups talking about cycling, women in cycling, or talking about green areas, talking about, so here, for example, this Mona Roda is like a bike kitchen or repair bike workshop. And of course also NGOs like the Association of Cyclists in São Paulo or Cicloberry. And in the middle of that, Bike Angel, which is the organization that we created. The reason why Bike Angel was created is because we felt that we wanted to bring more demand to the road, more people cycling. And one of the ways we found to do that was to create a simple platform where a person could request for a volunteer and ask for example, to learn how to ride a bike or to go to commute to work by bike or find a safer route. And then we would have our platform with volunteers that would connect with this cyclist beginner, and then they would cycle together. They would give, they would share experiences, and this beginner would then become also a volunteer and spread the word. And as well, we started doing also to bring more demand campaigns like bike to work, bike to school, bike in the suburbs, or campaigns with taxi drivers and bus drivers. And what we have now is a network of 4,200 volunteers in 455 cities, and we've helped already 18,000 people around Brazil, but also now expanding to other countries like Portugal and the US or Australia in Sydney, Ecuador, and of course also because I'm here with this duty in Germany. But then the first thing that we felt after this spread, and especially in São Paulo, it became quite strong, and also the association of cyclists in São Paulo got really strong. And we started demanding that for the city hall and for the mayor, and the first response from the mayor was the leisure bike lanes. So imagine in a city where you had almost no bike lanes, and then a mayor says, okay, I'll support bike lanes. Here is a bike lane every Sunday from 7 to 4. And we hated the fact that it was only on Sundays because it was not meant for commuting. But now reflecting upon that, I would say it was the first revolution in São Paulo. Why is that? We would have every Sunday 120 kilometers of bike lanes around the city. They were just for one moment. They were not really well designed because, as you can see, in the middle of the street with cars going by, but the speed was lower on those days. But significant was that 120,000 cyclists would cycle every Sunday, and these were people that never cycled before, mainly, so people taking their bike out of the garage or buying new bikes. So this was really, really getting more people into cycling and liking the fact of cycling. Yeah? Second revolution that I found in São Paulo, 2012. So just to mention that the leisure bike lanes came in 2009. 2012 came the bike sharing system in São Paulo. And it was really revolutionary also. I remember really, really clearly seeing cyclists that were all like really not really safe or sure of cycling. They were not really experienced cyclists, but they just saw the easiness of getting a bike and going around without having to buy one, and then more and more getting people on bikes. And after this period of 4 years, we have already 240 stations and around the city, and 2 million trips, so it's quite famous and quite popular and used a lot around there. Well, but all this that I mentioned, of course, doesn't make bicycle infrastructure. It was just incentives or promotions that people, well, bike sharing is also part of the infrastructure, but not, we wouldn't see bike lanes in the streets. So we would have in 2008 around 33 kilometers of bike lanes, and 19 kilometers of those were in parks. 2013, 63 kilometers, got a little bit better, but also more a great majority in the parks. And then the third revolution came in 2016 now, in which we are having 400 kilometers of bike lanes. And that is the third revolution that I call in São Paulo, the bike lanes network. So as you can see, the shape of the map is almost everything of the city now connected or has a piece of bike lanes. Of course, there are lots of 400 kilometers compared to the 17,000 kilometers of streets in São Paulo is not much, but it's all definitely making a big, big change. So you would see changes like this in the center of São Paulo, where you have one street with a full of cars parked all over, and now you have a beautiful bike lane going on the left side, which is permitted, which is allowed cycling either on the left or in the right side in Brazil. Avenida Paulista, that avenue that I showed in the picture of the car dependency, full of cars, is now a beautiful bike lane, and more than that, it's beyond having a beautiful bike lane on the center. Every Sunday now, the whole avenue, the boulevard, is closed for people, so people can go there to run and to do picnics and whatever, and it's really a beautiful scene. And this is my photo on my last day in São Paulo before I came to Germany, so it was a really special celebration to say goodbye to Brazil with this new bike lane and with this new avenue only for people. And as you can see, in 3 months from July 2015 when it started until September, it doubled the number of cyclists. You know? So in 1 year after this bike lanes came, we could see that there were 27% more cyclists and 21% decrease in deaths. So it shows again that it's not the problem of cycling being unsafe, but definitely the infrastructure or the conditions we put cyclists on. And as more cyclists come to the street, there are a decrease on deaths or in accidents. And a good movie to show that is Bikes versus Cars. I do really recommend that people see it. And another example that I wanted to show quick, I wanted to show one of Rio de Janeiro and about Brazil to close up, is about the city center cycle route. So the NGO Transporte Ativo, the local association in Rio de Janeiro, they gathered children, they gathered people that don't know how to ride a bike, people that wish that they could use a bike, or even people that are experienced on cycling, and neighbors also, and went to the center of the city and designed themselves a city center cycle route. This became a really beautiful exhibition in which they were trying to campaign this idea, and also a beautiful guidebook in which they designed 33 kilometers of bike lanes network in the city center. And the reality is that just a little bit after that, they have now, for example, in this road, a new bike lane. So the infrastructure is now around 19 or 20 kilometers of the bike lanes of these suggestions were already absorbed or done by the City Hall. But of course, not everything is perfect. So for the Olympics, for example, you still see bad examples like this one, in which in the guidebook from the Olympics, they suggested not to use bikes or any active transport because there wouldn't be any bike parking or any place to keep your vehicle, your active and sustainable transport. But we're definitely getting better conditions for sure. And how is the situation in Brazil? To sum up this idea that I wanted to mention, that it's not only in São Paulo, not only in Rio, which are big cities, but also in the whole country. Well, Brazil has a National Mobility Act right now, also urban mobility plan, or policy actually, which says that every city over 20,000 inhabitants should have done an urban mobility plan until April 2015. And there it shows as one of the principles that cycling and walking should be a priority. The fact is that only 30% of them actually did something by now, so that made us really, really disappointed, but also as an opportunity to do a project. So we built together Bikeanjo, Transporte Ativo, and also UCB, which is the Brazilian Cyclist Union or Association. We built together the Bicycle in the Plans campaign. It's a project supported by ICS, Instituto Clima e Sociedade, with the purpose of engaging city halls and citizens together, and the local associations, together to include cycling and to produce their urban mobility plan, to develop their urban mobility plan, but also to include cycling in their plan. And how we did that? We did a guide which was distributed to all cities, and it's also downloaded, available for download. Will be soon in English and Spanish also, to all the cities and capitals actually in Brazil. We also did an online campaign in which cities could join in or participate and support other cities and discuss that. And we started with 10 cities in the beginning of the campaign, and we are already now 21 cities that started this campaign. And the most important bike revolution that we see in Brazil from this campaign is the dialogue that we've been seeing. So before, we would have cyclists just trying to communicate with the city hall and not being possible. And now we see cities like Maringá in the south of Brazil or Manaus in the Amazon, in which they're sitting together with the city hall and with the technicians and building their urban mobility plans and their cycling planning together. I believe that's the biggest revolution that we're going now, the open dialogues. Thank you, and here are my contacts, but we will also talk more during the discussion.
Great, thanks a lot, JP, with the 3 or 4 revolutions you just mentioned. And talking about dialogue on a national and local scale, we also maybe want to talk about dialogue on an international scale. And as I said earlier, Marcius in ECF responsible for these global agendas, and we'll talk a little bit on how they facilitate cycling and what they do for the local cycle community and vice versa. And so I will make you the moderator now. Ching, ching.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
And,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you decently.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to just show you. Can you see my screen at all?
It was there for like a second and now it's on.
Can you see it?
Yes, now we see it.
Yes. If I make
The
it
picture in the background of you is also quite nice, by the way.
You want to see it? Yeah? Oh no. Yeah, it's working.
Now it's gone again.
Yeah.
There it is. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So first, thank you. So first of all, thank you very much, GIZ, for putting together such a nice webinar. And it's also a great pleasure for me to be a pleasure and a responsibility to be talking after one of ECF board members, Xenia, and one of our super active members of the World Cycling Alliance, which is Bike Angel. And I will tell you a little experience I had when I started working at ECF that shows pretty much how we are really leaving this momentum for cycling. And it happened while we were preparing for the World Urban Forum 7 in Medellin. And then I had to go to a meeting at the UN Habitat office here in Brussels. And I was a little bit nervous because I don't know much about cycling beyond European borders. But I got there, and the lady who welcomed me was the project manager of the World Urban campaign. And then she opened the door, we did the formalities, exchanged the card, and when she saw my card, she was like, wow, the cyclist, we need you. We want to be one of our members, and just come in. And I was like, wow, that was a good wake-up call, not only to relax me at that moment, but to see how cycling, we're really leaving this momentum in all different levels. And together, I'm trying to change, okay. So at that same period, ECF launched the World Cycling Alliance, which was also great for me to get to know people like JP, also to know work like the work that Xenia is doing, and get to know more of what's happening on cycling around the world. And then the process for Habitat 3 started, and as we became a member of the World Urban Campaign, I started working really close together with them. And but at that moment, for me, cycling was pretty much like a mode of transport only. But when I started reading more about the goals of sustainable urban development, I saw that cycling actually not only fits, but it's a great tool for nearly all these urban goals that we need to work more nowadays. But especially if we just shift a little bit the bicycle as a tool for accessibility, so like for access to the city. I am not going to go into all these goals, but I would like to stress how I started working and broadening, how I had to broaden a little bit my view of cycling. And I always like to start with health, because health is the one that we have a really positive economic impact very quickly. So investing in cycling is not only good for us, but it's also very good for health, government health budgets in general. And when I see that we hear a lot about infrastructure, which I agree that infrastructure is very, very important. But when we go to places where cycling is not common, we need to also work a lot on behavior change. Otherwise, we end up in situations like this. We have a quite decent bicycle lane, but you still have all these guys riding their mobiles. In this process as well, I noticed how important the zone 30s are, not only for the cyclists, but also for the city in general, for it brings a much more, a much safer scenario for our cities, especially for kids, elderly, so it brings life to the city. So that was another point that was important on my advocacy work in the Habitat 3. This also, it was a bit tricky to kind of focus on the bicycle as a tool for resilience. And then I started looking more and more, and I think this photo pictures a lot. This is in the right after the earthquake in Nepal, where the bicycle proves to be the best way to move goods and people around for the lack of space in these situations. So when we're talking about urban development and the transport, we have to talk about congestion. Lots of people don't really realize the costs, how bad it is for a city, the congestion. I was pretty amazed when I read the report from the EU to the Habitat 3 on transport, where they said that congestion costs €1 billion per year to the European Union, which is equal to 1% of the whole European GDP. So that was also on the how it affects productivity was also a point that I always talk about when I'm talking about the Habitat 3 process. So climate change, also very important. I think it's pretty clear, like more cycling, less cars on the streets, and we have a much better quality air. So climate change is also very much part of the discussion. Here I would like to also point out the importance of safe and green public space for urban development. When we travel around, I see that wherever you have safe public spaces, you have a lot of people. And we can't forget that cycling-friendly cities and areas are safe areas where people can enjoy their cities and the kids can play around much better than in a city that is very car-oriented. So here is like changing a little bit and more into this, the bicycle as a tool for accessibility. So the bicycle giving access to jobs, but also to education for young people to learn new professions working with the bicycle. In this picture, it's also very interesting to see the bicycle bringing health to people, especially in remote areas. So again, giving people access to health and to education. And I find this picture very nice because you see the bicycle as a tool for girls to get to school and to be able to follow like a normal career in their lives. Again, I will go back a little bit to the point of the bicycle and jobs. This is a picture in South America, which I don't know if most of you know, but in South American big cities, most of the deliveries are made today already by bicycle. But while this guy is actually making our cities cleaner and safer, his working conditions are really bad. So I've been also advocating inside the Habitat 3 process for the working condition of people working with bicycles and cyclologistics. In this picture, it's also clear the importance of a bicycle to boost the local economy and make people consume products that are produced around the area where they live. And so the bicycle, again, a very low-cost way of bringing these products into local markets. Now, just going more towards the mega cities, and it's very interesting that we heard about São Paulo, which is a huge city. When we talk about all these kilometers of roads and the distance that people have to commute daily, I always push for intermodality, so the integration of the bicycle into the public transport system. And here you have a project that I bumped into not long ago from Rio de Janeiro. Maré is actually one of the biggest slums in Rio, and this project proposes to link the slum to transport hubs that connect to the, this area to the social and economic center of the city. So in order for the mega cities, I think it's I always advocate for intermodality in order to make door-to-door travel more seamless, and the bicycle as the last mile and personal last mile connectivity. But in order for intermodality to work well, we have to go back to infrastructure. So not only bicycle lanes that people will save traveling from home to the station, but also parking facilities at the station so that they feel that they can leave their bikes there in a safe way before they hop on the public transport. I always like to tell the story of this little girl that touches me a lot. It's actually a little girl, and she's around 7 years old, and she walks 2.5 hours to school every day and 2.5 hours back from school. And there is just one little thing, which is a bicycle, would make her save at least 3 hours of her commuting daily. And these 3 hours she could actually be more productive on her studies. She could be helping her household at the household, or she could just be like playing around and being a child, and enjoying the childhood, which is something that lots of kids around the world today are deprived from. Now going more towards the new urban agenda, I think this is pretty much the way that we are living today, and we are getting to a point that if we don't change and shift to the paradigm of urban development, we are going to end up really stuck in traffic forever. So it's time to change it and to have more people on the side of the bicycle. And in that sense, me together with ECF have been working very actively on the process of the Habitat 3, participating on the platform, on the negotiations. JP has also worked with us for a little while, and he's working with us even in Quito in different negotiations, in the urban dialogue. So it was really a very nice and productive work, and I have to say that we are very happy with the result. It's the first global document that we have cycling really well represented. And not only cycling, there is also in this document other ideas where cycling plays a role inside, such as access to the city and mobility. So I would actually encourage, if you work with cycling advocacy, I would encourage you to take a look on the document, because I really think that this document can be a very good document for cycling advocacy, not only cycling, but for transport advocacy in general. So a very good document to go and knock on the door of your decision makers. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about cycling, please take a look on our conference Velocity that will happen next year in Arnhem and Nijmegen in the Netherlands. And thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Marcio. These were some great stories again, and yeah, linking. I mean, I also worked on the new agenda and agree that that the document is actually quite positive about cycling and can be used in case you want to advocate for your case as a cyclist advocate.
Yeah.
So I'll just take back the screen. All right, and would like to welcome you to the discussion. We've now heard of Xenia, JP, and Marcio about their work and how, I mean, for me, one of the key messages was how dialogue really helped their case. And in case of Xenia, with people starting to talk and creating win-win situations, and also JP with the 3 revolutions that kind of made cycling kind of adult in Sao Paulo, but then also the 4th revolution with the dialogue. So I don't know. I don't think we have any questions in the chat. We've had any questions in the chat so far. JP indicates he has a questions. So in case you want to, please write your question there, or also, I mean, you can also indicate that you want to speak. That will also be possible. Okay, JP, you indicated that you wanted to ask something.
It's easier to have a camera. You just point out that you want a question. Well, no, it's just that it was wonderful listening from Xenia, like this parallel comparison of the timeline. You know, we are on the other side of the world and we are doing things on the same years and the same timeline, and the same revolution is happening all over the world. And then Marcio confirmed that, showing many, especially with the new urban agenda, how is that impacting. My question is basically to understand, that's the fact, you know, to try to understand why this timeline is so similar all around the world is a question for us to reflect upon. I just have some hypotheses, but I would definitely like to hear from you guys, especially like what made it first happen in Ukraine, this revolution, but also globally what we are seeing from ECF and from World Cycling Alliance, Marcel.
Would you like to start, Ksenia?
Well, I can't say I have an answer to that. I'm just thinking about my personal experiences and the experiences in our organization. I think we got a critical amount of people who realized that it's time to take responsibility. We cannot blame the city council anymore for not doing something. And if we want to change the city, it's also our responsibility. And that was the time when people had more experience living abroad, traveling, and comparing how things work or don't work. And I can't really say why it is this moment, like why not earlier. Probably it's just that maybe it's a new generation of people, you know, who turned 20, who were in their 20s and 30s, who already traveled a lot and they got some experience, and then they felt, we felt that it's our time to help and make our cities better. What do you think?
Well, I think I'm going to be a little bit more, I totally agree with you as well, Tanya, but I think we are also going through a period in the world that if we don't change, I think we're really not going to go ahead. Like our kids are not going to be able to live anymore. And I think that's what is pretty much happening around the world. Like when I see this last picture that I showed, and also I've just been to places like to Indonesia, and then you see cities like Jakarta, where the city just does not work anymore because everyone is just stuck in traffic. And I think transport is just one of the problems. But I think we have, unfortunately, there was some trends in development that is just not sustainable at all, and now it's getting really, really bad when you think about the amount of people just living into urban areas. And that's what I think people that people that are more into, how to say that, have access, I would say, to information in general. It's our role now to actually get together and do what we are doing and changing it and thinking that the world is still possible to be a livable world. Sorry if I was a bit negative.
But it makes sense, it makes sense. I would just add to that, Ksenia, as to what do I think. I think it has to do a lot with how definitely how city halls are dealing with dialogues or these democracies or how to take decisions. Yeah. So I think the decisions of the past was really in regards to building roads and infrastructure, and that was just like a mindset that would be the right to do. And I think one of the big competitors from car industry that although many cyclists believe that, oh, it's bikes versus cars, and I don't believe at all in that scenario, but it's technology. I mean, look at us here, at each one in one country. Well, I think Jacob and I are in the same country, but the rest are all in other countries, and we are able to talk to 27 people around the world without needing to commute. And I think when people started around 2000, well, in the 2000s or in the 21st century, started using technology and seeing that they could communicate and commute with this technology, they wanted something faster to commute, and cars were not helping on that sense. I believe there is a lot to do with that too.
All right. We also have a question from our audience. We want to wrap up until 3 o'clock, so maybe, okay, there is another one as well. So the first one to JP about Sao Paulo building 400 kilometers of new bike lanes. How do they fund that? I mean, is it solely the administration just dedicating funds, or how is it financed? And then the other question from Mazria is about cycling in 100 countries, such as Malaysia. I guess we have, I mean, JP can also give an input on that, but also maybe Xenia, if you have input on the financing part, that would be interesting as well.
Or even Marso in Brussels because it rains so much, I remember that. But from funding in Sao Paulo, this was the biggest discussion. From 2012 to 2014, the city hall didn't do anything because they said they didn't have money. And then the activists, the bicycle enthusiasts, don't only have to understand about bikes, but also about financing. And there was a suggestion of getting a fund from, for example, fines, or from tickets, yeah, from traffic, for example, or other things, as to be also a methodology to fund cycling in the long term, right? So not only getting a money from a international cooperation bank or development bank, but something that could be in a long term, always considered there a budget for cycling. So I think that's also important to note on administration and how to have really governance that will be long-lasting promotion on cycling or sustainable mobility.
Okay, great, thank you. Xenia, do you have anything you want to add to this, or to the funding? How does it work in the Ukraine?
Well, in our case, it was that and this year it was a local, like city budget. But right now we are also working on the cycling concept for Kyiv, where part of the document will cover the funding mechanisms as well. And as JP said, we're also thinking about the ways how to link it, for example, to parking fees or some fines that are like car tickets. But at the moment, our experience is local funding and promotion is mostly done by NGOs.
Can I just add something, Jacob? I think it's also very important. I think funding, yes, is very important because it's actually something immediate. But I see also the work of like Anjo and also Xenia. I think it's very important that we create a dialogue, that we make clear, like we NGOs, that we make clear that investing in cycling, it's not money wasted. It's actually you're getting back a lot of things. And I think I put it the health. I always like to talk about health first of all in my presentations because the health is very clear, and the British are they do a great marketing job, and they're doing like their marketing pitches on health, saying like if we invest in cycling as the Dutch do, we actually can save so much and so much billions a year. So I think it's very important that we also create this technique, but of course the will of decision makers is very important. But it's I think it's what Xenia and JP are talking, like it's very important that we create a very coherent and convincing how to say message that investing in cycling is actually getting more money for government. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thanks. All right, as a last question, any hints on how to deal with humidity? Yeah, please go ahead, JP, and Marcio as well, Xenia.
Yeah, I prefer to answer separately so we could talk about funding, but it is also something that I perceived here coming to Europe. I mean, I arrived in Berlin in winter, and everybody in Brazil was complaining about cycling in the summer, and I was saying like, oh, you don't know what is cycling in the winter, so don't complain. But so it is, of course, also an argument when you have a humid country which rains a lot. And I remember in Brussels when I was with ECF, in one of the lectures, one of the presenters just mentioned like, oh, if you think that rain is, because it quite rains a lot in Brussels, and he said if you think it is a big issue, actually Brussels is raining only, I think, like less than 10% of the year, but it looks a lot, of course, because we just see the humidor as like a middle all the year, but it's not true. So the first thing is try to look for the facts, as it is really humid as to be a problem or not. But of course, in Brazil, in the north of Brazil, we have some cities which we call, it is like, it has kind of like an arm when it rains, you know, every 2 p.m. it will rain and then you have to hide yourself and stuff. But it's definitely, I've seen from Europe to Brazil that weather has not been a problem to promote it, even if it is really cold, really warm, or rainy or not. You just have to get the arguments and show that there is demand.
Yeah, I find this question kind of like a good one, because being someone, I'm also from Brazil, like JP, and in Brazil everyone says like, oh, I can't really cycle if it's snowing, and then here in Europe it's like, but how can I cycle when it's so hot? And I think it's all a question of getting it, like you have to get the gears for it. You also need to advocate for good conditions, like, you know, all this bike to work ideas of, okay, if it's very hot like São Paulo or Rio, let's then advocate for the companies to have infrastructure for people to have a shower when they get there, or to have, you know, like it's just like really details, I think, to get over. Because if I even now today, if I think about the cycling in Copenhagen with a lot of snow, I will freak out. Probably I won't go, because you can't put a Brazilian on a bicycle on the ice. I will for sure fall, you know. But then when I see the pictures, and I am all the time exposed to them, because we work a lot with Copenhagen, and it's actually everyone cycling as much when it's snowing as when it's. And then we have Rio, that it's growing a lot. We have São Paulo growing a lot. I think it's very much a question of in countries like Malaysia, for example, I think behavior change is a very important thing. Is make people understand that the bicycle is for every day, for all the time. If you have the right gears, if you have infrastructure in the office, so just let's bring an environment where cycling is normal. This is, I think, the most important thing. It's not the weather or the conditions, and then of course infrastructure, but very much linked to safety. I think people have to feel safe. Like if you think of Kuala Lumpur, that was completely built for cars with the humidity, so you're just adding obstacles for people to not cycle. So that's pretty much my position.
All right.
I have nothing to add to that.
All right.
You have more about the code, no?
Well, yeah. Let me thank you again for joining, or for giving the presentations and giving these very deep insights, and also to our participants to joining this SUTP seminar, which we actually do on a regular basis. SUTP is the Sustainable Urban Transport Project of GIZ, and we have published heaps of readings on cycling as well, which you can see in this presentation. And we've also worked in Ukraine, and so you'll get this presentation. I don't want to read through all this now, but yeah, you'll get this presentation and also a recording of this whole webinar on our CAPSUT page, capsut.org, so you can yeah, see again everything that has been said. All right. Then there's another hello from Malaysia, and I guess we say hello and goodbye from our side then. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Huh? See you next time.
Bye-bye.